Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scourge of War Waterloo, Episode 8. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the Quatre Bras expansion Allied Brigade scenario, the Braunschweig, which I guess means the Brunswick. And in this episode, our forces have been pushed back from the area around Gemioncourt and have started to fall back on the village of Quatre Bras, opening up a gap in our lines, kind of around where the woods are to the west of Quatre Bras and where Picton's line is deployed on the Namur Road. And our brigade is being brought up to basically plug the hole in our line and attempt to hold back the French juggernaut as it rolls forward from Gemioncourt in an attempt to give Wellington time to bring up reinforcements. So it says, having marched from their cantonments at Brussels throughout the morning, the Brunswick Corps started to arrive at Quatre Bras at around 3:30 p.m. The Linnean Infantry Brigade was placed in reserve to the north of the Bois de Bazou, which are the woods. The Dutch for some time have repulsed the probing French attacks. However, against enemy cavalry, they have retreated back to Quatre Bras. The Allied center is now vulnerable. The Brunswick units are needed to plug the gap. Move forward and hold the area south of Quatre Bras. So we basically start off in column on the road here, coming into Quatre Bras, and we're kind of going to move forward and deploy kind of here and to stop kind of the left part of the French lines. We have 3 battalions, and we need 1,750 points for a major victory. And of course, here's the biography, which I won't read. You guys can always pause it if you want to read it again. All right, so let's bring the volume up a little bit. Right there ought to do it. Okay, so here we are. We are marching through Quatre Bras, and here are our 3 battalions marching in road column. And here's our courier. As always, at the beginning of every scenario, we get our courier. And it says, the Brunswick Corps is ordered to the fields south of Quatre Bras. You are ordered to move your brigade to deploy in the fields to the east of the Bois de Bazou. Major von Raschenplatz. Wow, my German isn't that great, so if I pronounced that wrong and I offended any kind of Dutch German people, very sorry about that. But yeah, Major von Raschenplatz advanced brigade is already in position. Defend the area until Quatre Bras can be properly secure. Defend the fields to the south. Okay, so there is a friendly brigade kind of already deployed on our right, or where we're going to deploy. They're going to be on our right. Kind of a small brigade, but you know, small help is better than no help. And this here is the Namur Road, and this is kind of Picton's division kind of arriving on the field and deploying. Okay, so these here are kind of road movement waypoints. And this is the destination that the game starts us off with, kind of right here. However, the objective is, well, I'm sure I'll get the camera back there in a second and show you. But the objective is kind of further ahead. And you'll notice I'm double-clicking my units here because the French are going to start advancing. Here's the objective, right here. Here's the French, who are very close, and, you know, we're a little further behind. So I am double-clicking the whole brigade to kind of have them get a move on. Now, normally that's kind of risky because you generally don't want to deplete your unit's fatigue by having them run long distances, which, you know, unfortunately, because this is kind of a race, because as we approach, you're going to see the French get them start moving too. And we want to reach that objective and set up before the French actually get to us. So I don't normally like doing this, you know, but you know, in this instance, it's kind of necessary to, you know, get the blood pumping, so to speak, by having these men, you know, run to get to their positions. so that we can get to the objective as quickly as possible, occupy it, and be ready to set up a defensive position as these French approach. Now here's, you can see some more men coming in, but they won't really get involved. And you can see over here, this is the brigade that's kind of deployed to our right. They already have some skirmishers out, but as I said, they're a relatively small brigade, whereas our battalions are actually pretty large. As you can see, we have 2,000 men in only 3 battalions. So these battalions are actually pretty large size. So I'm just waiting for everybody to kind of get in position here. You can see the French have started to advance, so this is going to be quite the race to the objective here. And I'm going to set them up in line formation here. This is kind of a double line formation where I'm going to put 2 battalions in front and 1 in behind as a reserve, although I'll kind of move them more. I'll kind of move the reserve battalion more in the center to have them be able to reinforce either battalion. So yeah, this is a lot of running, and I am sapping my unit's fatigue. However, because we're going to be fighting this as a kind of a delaying and defensive action here, I'm not anticipating having to use my units for charges. I'm basically going to set them up in a firing line and try and use firepower to stop these French. So the fact that I'm using a lot of their fatigue, and as you can see, it is depleting. We're down to fresh from energetic. So I am depleting these units' fatigue by making them run, but it's kind of necessary because, as you can see at the top of the screen here, the French are closing in rather quickly. And not only do we need to get here, but we need to set our line up. We need to get our skirmishers out front. We need to kind of move fast. So the first few minutes of this scenario is a little hectic as you're basically going to try and be establishing your lines kind of while under fire and trying to get your skirmishers out in front of you, under conditions where you're kind of already being fired upon. So the first few minutes of the scenario are kind of a button-clicking frenzy, so to speak, as you're trying to get your line set up and your skirmishers out front. So we have possession of the objective. You can tell by the our little flag right here that has our Allied colors. And we have our officer stationed right near the objective, so the right number of men and an officer always at all times. And here we go. We're going to start kicking out skirmishers kind of as quickly as we can here. And in this instance, this is one of the only instances where this, kind of skirmisher bug in the way skirmishers deploy kind of bothers me because, I want to get them moving very quickly, but, I have to wait until the AI starts moving them so that I can take command of them and still have the toolbar properly flipped. And like I said, it's a little buggy in this scenario because kind of every second counts here at the beginning when we're trying to get this done as quickly as possible. So our main unit has engaged at this point. Now, luckily, these are big battalions. So even though I don't have a lot of skirmishers out right now or anything, just the fact that these battalions are so big in terms of the number of men in each battalion means that I am getting a lot of firepower out there quickly. The French units aren't quite as big as my units, but ideally what I really want to do here is get some skirmishers out front. To kind of screen the main battalion so they don't get hit as much, because you don't want your units to take big losses and run away. So the French have deployed kind of far enough away here that they are not really right up in the skirmishers phase. As I've said in other videos, if skirmishers are too close to line units, it sort of defeats their ability to not get hit as much, because they're just kind of in prime musket range of massed line French units that are just slinging a lot of lead at them. So you want to kind of keep them at this sort of sweet spot, where they're close enough that they're inflicting losses, but not so close that they're losing a lot of men themselves, and not so far away that they're not really doing as much damage as they could if they were a little bit closer. And that takes some practice to kind of find that distance. It's usually around between 75 and 90 yards or so. That's usually around the sweet spot. Usually around 75 to 90 yards away from the enemy unit. And one of the reasons I'm trying to keep the skirmishers actually close to my line units, meaning they're deployed kind of just right in front of them there, is while they're still screening the line units as far as protecting the line units from getting shot at a lot, the line units are still close enough that they're able to fire. Skirmishers do not block line of sight. I may have mentioned this in other videos, but I'm mentioning it again here. They don't block line of sight for infantry units behind them or artillery, so you can deploy artillery kind of right behind skirmishers, and the skirmishers don't stop the artillery from firing. They don't block line of sight the way it would work if, say, artillery was deployed behind, line infantry, where it would block line of sight. So skirmishers never block line of sight, which is a good thing. As you can see, the French juggernaut is moving on through here, and they are trying to move off my left flank. Now our right is kind of anchored by this other Allied brigade of ours that's kind of stationed to the right of us. So this French brigade here is trying to move off on our left, and kind of similar to what I did in the Sunken Road, this reserve unit, which is very large, is going to become a source for skirmishers, where I can basically kick out skirmishers from this reserve unit and not deplete the line strength of my forward units. And I'm basically rushing them here. I should have done it sooner, to be honest with you. When I first saw them moving back here, that's when I really should have kicked out the skirmishers and had them running. So I'm a little slow on the trigger here, and it's going to cause me a little bit of a problem. Not too bad. I recover from it pretty quickly, but that was a mistake in waiting that long to extend my skirmisher line to the left. I saw them when they were back here, what they were trying to do, and I just waited too long. Now this is a little weird here. This is kind of a weird movement. They're like in line. Well, I guess they're in assault column here, but they're trying to form line, and they're very close to my skirmisher unit here. This is too close. Fortunately they haven't started firing yet, but this is definitely too close. This is about the distance you want. This is too close. So I'm probably relying on these skirmisher units to kind of shoot into these guys and, get them to, as you can see, I'm backing these guys off. I know they're too close, and they're going to start taking casualties. You can see it's 6, 7, it's mounting up pretty quickly already, just because they're way too close. And there's also an assault column coming in. So the left side of my line now is starting to be pressed pretty heavily here. And luckily these guys have formed line and they want to shoot, but they're very close at this point. And at this kind of range, your skirmishers can start to take some heavy losses. It's too close. And here they come. They're going for it. So we have to fall back. But, again, they wasted a charge on the skirmisher unit, and now they're going to be standing right in front of this line unit. And these guys are coming too, so we're going to have these guys fall back as well. So at this point now, they have turned my left flank, and this is all due to me being a little slow on the trigger when I saw them advancing on my left from out here, and I just took way too long to get skirmisher units kind of in range. So they were able to basically close to a close distance where they could actually push forward and push my skirmish units aside. So now we got to do a little, we got to do a little damage control here. And I'm basically committing my reserve here and turning them to fire on this unit that has kind of penetrated my left at this point. Now, luckily, while these guys were reforming, this skirmisher group was kind of able to sneak by them while they were reforming. And now this skirmisher unit is going to be firing at them, and this huge line is going to be firing into their flank. So luckily, and because they're a small unit, this could have been a lot worse than it ended up being, because you know, this was a small unit that actually penetrated in here. So when they got in here, they were taking fire from a very large unit, as well as some skirmishers. You know, so I mean, that's how quickly that was kind of. I was very lucky there. I was very lucky that the unit that penetrated was so small in relation to the units that I had behind the line. That could have gone a lot worse. That was a mistake, you know, and I'm okay with showing you guys some mistakes. You know, I've been playing this game for many years, and even I still make them. You know, the important thing is how you deal with them once you've made them, and to recognize when you've made them. You know, as you saw, I goofed in La Hassant, where, you know, at the beginning of the scenario, I deployed some skirmishers and forgot to actually move them into the orchard. So they started getting the worst of it, because the unit they were firing on was in the orchard and had the defensive terrain bonus. And my unit I left outside, and they didn't have the defensive terrain bonus, and were thus getting fired upon, and it basically kind of nullified the fact that they were skirmishers. So even I, after years of playing this game, still occasionally, you know, blunder. But like I said, the important thing is how you bounce back from it. So that's it's a perfect example of what I said in the sunken lane scenario, where, if you recall at the beginning of the scenario, I said it's just always good to keep a reserve unit. Even when you don't think you can, even when you think you need every unit on the firing line, it's just good to say, I'm going to keep one unit back. Just for situations like that, where you either do something dumb like I just did, or, you know, just something unfortunate happens. One of your battalions breaks and a hole opens up in your line and you need to plug it quickly, you're going to be thankful you have that reserve. You know, so even though we're covering a kind of smaller frontage than we would be if we had kind of all three units in line, I could have extended my left a lot further. You know, I also would have had nothing to fall back on if anything went wrong. I would have had no unit in reserve, and it would have been much harder to deal with kind of, you know, penetrations of the line. So that's why I always advise, if you can, you know, keep a reserve. You know, keep at least one unit in reserve, just for situations like that. So now the situation has kind of started to stabilize a little bit. Again, these skirmishers are a little too far out in front. You can see they're tired now. They're, you know, taking more losses than I would like, because they're just a little too close to these units. But on the other hand, they're also very close to our line unit. So our line unit is also shooting at the infantry. So they're still screening the line unit, and the line unit is still putting out a lot of fire, because, as I said, skirmishers don't block line of sight. But because of this, I'm going to start trying to kick off some more skirmishers and kind of thicken this lineup. As you can see, there are still more units coming, and you know, as it is, these skirmishers, you know, they're only 100-man groups, so if they start taking losses like they're, you know, liable to do at kind of this range, which is a little too close for them, you know, it can deplete the amount of you know, men you have on the skirmish line, which means they're depleting how much, you know, fire you're kind of putting forward. So it's always good to just, you know, be able to kick out more skirmishers and kind of thicken up the line. They'll be fresh, so, you know, and you know, as you kind of stack them up and really thicken out the skirmish line, it can kind of turn things your way. I'm just pulling the leader back, just kind of further back. Not that leaders really die often. It does happen, but mostly it happens if the leader actually comes in contact with enemy infantry. They don't usually get shot, so usually you can just kind of leave them, as long as they're kind of behind the lines. They're not going to get shot. You just don't want units to come close enough to them that they actually, like, make contact with them, and then it's kind of an automatic death. So here we have another assault column that's getting very close. And I'm looking for the charge. And yeah, they're definitely moving. They're just walking up to us though. They haven't really started charging yet, which is kind of a good tactic because they're making the skirmishers retreat just by proximity. You know, and you know, now they're going to charge this unit. But this unit, though tired, is still pretty big. You know, and the French took some losses on that approach because they never actually charged the skirmishers. So, you know, the skirmishers were shooting at them until pretty much the last minute. But, you know, in that instance, you know, I always try to, in this kind of situation, avoid what just happened. I got lucky again. We won the charge and that the French retreated, but the combat results tables in this game can be kind of random. So when holding on to a position, kind of getting involved in a bayonet charge like that is risky. If it goes your way, it can save the day, and if it doesn't go your way, it can ruin the day. So I try to avoid that, but in that situation, you know, the AI didn't exactly charge any of the skirmishers. It just kind of moved up and by proximity kind of forced them to retreat without actually having to commit to a charge themselves, which left me no choice but to charge them with my line unit. So, kind of got lucky there. So we're going to start bringing the skirmishers back up. Now that that column has retreated. We still have a pretty big dense line of French units out here shooting at us. So it's not over yet. It's definitely not over yet. We've held for about 20 minutes so far. We're doing pretty good. But you know, some of our units are starting to get tired. It's not so bad over on the right here because again, we do have our allies that were helping us out, and you know, the French just haven't kind of pushed as aggressively as they seem to be doing on this side of the line. And here comes another French column. Now we're firing into their flank with this unit, so we're as you can see, we're dropping people. You know, but again, they look like they're trying to move out on the left flank here. And I really should not be doing this, and I really should be keeping an eye on what's going on here. But you know, I see now that they are moving towards my left flank again, and again, they're moving forward with bad intentions. So we're going to have to start to pull back, and in all probability, retreat, because this line, this column here coming forward, they're clearly bent on you know, getting around our left flank here. So once again, I'm going to have to commit this reserve and actually kind of pull the same trick again. Fire into their flank and, you know, basically, you know, try and run them out of here again. And again, I'll probably pull something very similar where I'm going to move the skirmisher unit back into position and start shooting at them in the front while this unit fires on them in the flank. And that was actually a very weird movement the French did. They were kind of marching sideways in column by division, more like they were using the flank march button, which is very weird. A very weird movement. I really don't see the Allies use that. The AI, I'm sorry, use that often. And they're already falling back as they are getting shot in the flank is always a great way to make an enemy unit break and run. You know, generally speaking, flank fire will make a unit break and run faster than anything else, you know, besides obviously being melee. You know, even if they don't actually take heavy losses from the flank fire, just being fired in the flank seems to have a kind of demoralizing effect. So if you ever need to clear out a position, or clear out kind of a, an area where your line has been punctured like that, try and bring multiple directions of fire against that unit, from the front, from the flank, from the rear if possible, and you'll have a quicker time of actually getting them out of there. So yeah, some hairy moments on the left here in terms of, my line was kind of outflanked several times, but really keeping this unit in reserve here and not committing them to battle, and keeping them kind of fresh. You can see they still have not taken many losses. Their fatigue is still pretty high. They haven't done much, just whenever I've been kind of outflanked, I've put them into a position to flank fire on the enemy. But they've, that's twice now that they've kind of saved the situation. And it's such a big unit that I'm still able to actually kick out more skirmishers from them in an attempt to, kind of stop that, those kind of outflanking maneuvers. So we're kind of being hit on the left here still. We're being hit on the right a little bit. Not so much going on in the center here. The French plan really seems to have been to try and outflank my lines here. So that's one of the reasons I sent some of these skirmisher units forward again, just to kind of thicken up that area of the line and be able to put fire down. And we're breaking off some more skirmishers here. And yeah, this is a good move. At this point now, I'm seeing that really the French have their heart set on my left flank. So I'm trying to extend my left a little bit, without having to actually commit this unit to doing it. If those skirmishers get pushed back again, I still have that unit in reserve if I need to use them. But I'd rather just use skirmishers, so that I can keep this unit in reserve while still effectively lengthening my line. A lot of dead bodies real quickly here, both Dutch, Belgian, and French. Dead horses over here from the earlier fighting that would have happened around 2-3 o'clock between Bachelot's division over here and Picton's division. So we did much better on the right here. You can see our allies have some units deployed kind of on the far right, kind of shooting into this unit. Got some skirmishers kind of lengthening the right of our line. So this is kind of one of those scenarios where you just kind of want to get to the objective and really dig your heels in and do your best to hold on to it. We've got about 5.5 minutes left in this scenario, and the French are still they're out there in force still. They're not pressing home their attack quite like they were at the beginning there, where they were really trying to move around our flank. And I'm using that opportunity now to bring more and more skirmishers kind of into the line. I did recall one skirmisher unit that had, kind of been part of some heavy fighting. So I brought them back into the lines and kind of kicked out a fresh one to take their place. How is this guy not dead? He's standing right in front of my skirmisher unit. I mean, that should be insta-death. But again, the game considers that my skirmisher unit is here, even though I have, sprites out here. The game sees the flag as the location, so, unless the general really comes kind of right into their true location there, he kind of gets to live. If this were, an old board war game, you can almost think of the flags as the counters, as the square counters. And, this is just kind of an animation of, what's happening. But in my opinion, he should be dead. Shouldn't be able to just kind of sit there right in front of enemy lines and not get shot to death. So it looks like one of our allied units got pushed back or fell back to just the tree line there. But with only 4 minutes left in the scenario, I don't think the French are really going to be able to make any kind of breakthrough at this point. They did make a breakthrough on the left, and I really think their mistake was just not following it up with a lot more units kind of moving forward at the same time. They tended to break through with like one unit at a time. And what they really should have done is all the units that were out here really should have pushed forward hard and really tried to exploit that break and maybe force all these skirmishers and maybe even this line unit to fall back. Then they would have had a much more of a possibility of actually, either contesting or actually overtaking the objective. So if you're going to sacrifice a unit to, achieve a breakthrough, and that's by no means necessarily a bad means of attack, but you have to be prepared to exploit the breach with fresh units. Otherwise, it accomplishes nothing. They'll penetrate, but if you don't support them, they're not going to be able to exploit the breach. So now we have some units moving towards the center here, and I'm going to put a few skirmisher units in front to kind of thicken up that part of the line. And as always, when watching these columns come down, the main thing you're watching for is, are they going to form line and shoot, or are they going to attack? Now at this point in the battle, I'm pretty confident that none of them are going to try and charge. These are units coming forward that have previously retreated, so they're probably just coming forward to form line and just shoot at us. But you can also see in the back at the top of the screen here a lot of French cavalry, and I am very, very happy that they are not part of this scenario, because boy, would that make things harder. You can see a French artillery battery has also kind of moved closer here. And this is kind of like short, medium range. They're not going to be able to fire canister at us from this range. But they're close enough that they might inflict some casualties. There's really nothing I can do about it, because I can't fall back out of that range, because I need to hold this objective. And they're not going to be able to do too much damage, because in 20 seconds the scenario is over anyway. And there we go. So we scored 3,700 points, almost 3,800. We took 161 casualties. Most of those are skirmishers because there weren't too many points where our line infantry was being fired upon directly. Most of the time, we had skirmishers kind of in front of them, screening them. We inflicted 1,000 casualties on the enemy, which is pretty impressive. So all in all, that scenario went pretty good. This scenario is basically a quick race. Race yourself to the objective and try and get yourself set up as fast as possible, and get some skirmishers out in front of your main battalions in order to screen them from being, kind of directly fired upon by the enemy. Um, and kind of keep the skirmishers kind of close to the your line battalions. Don't deploy them too far forward of the line battalions, because in this instance, because these French units are generally going to come to closer range than you would like for just skirmishers alone. So the skirmishers kind of need that line fire support behind them, um, to kind of offset the fact that the French units are approaching to distances closer than you would like for skirmishers. Like I said, somewhere between 75, 90, or 80 to 100 yards. That's kind of the range you would, you know, in an optimal situation, like to keep skirmishers at from the enemy. But you don't always get that choice. Sometimes you just have to make do with what the cards that you're dealt. So in this case, the French were obviously deploying at distances much closer to skirmishers than I would normally like. So one of the things you can do to help the skirmishers out is actually deploy them not too far in front of your line battalion, so that your line fire can actually help to offset the the disadvantage, the advantage they're kind of losing uh, to the French by being too close to them, because the French just move in too close. And yeah, try and keep one unit in reserve, because I did something very dumb at the beginning of that scenario, where I just let the French move around my left flank, and I did nothing until it was too late, or almost too late. By the time I got a skirmisher unit out there, they were practically over my left anyway. So that was a mistake. I saw them coming, and I just kind of uh, underestimated how quickly they would move on my left. From where I initially kind of saw them. So yeah, even I still make some errors, but we still managed to win the scenario. And other than that, it's a pretty straight ahead scenario. You're just basically racing to the objective and trying to get a defensive line up as quickly as possible. And other than that, it's a pretty straight ahead scenario. So yeah, that's about it for this episode. In the next episode, will be the final episode of the redone brigade scenario, and it will, of course, be the final engagement of the Battle of Waterloo, the sort of repulse of the French Imperial Guard, the final pursuit of the routed French army, and kind of the end of the Waterloo campaign there, and that is called La Garde Recule, or the Guard Retreats. So that's kind of a fun scenario. It's a little different from other scenarios in the game, where you're just kind of, that have we've been playing so far, where you're, kind of just kind of in a standard position, and you're either just trying to hold it, or you're just trying to capture a position and then hold it. And so it's kind of a different take on. Unique among brigade scenarios. By no means that difficult a scenario, but it is pretty fun to play. Um, so, yeah, that's it, guys. Take it easy.